feel your punch. Let them know you're there. All right?
Brian Baldinger doesn't just like football. He loves football.
Like, this is a party. Taking a Pro Bowl nose tackle and drilling him into the ground so that he can taste the grass seed at Lambeau Field.
Football!
Football! Yeah! Football! I've never heard that one. Play it again.
That's great.
Like, this is a party. Taking a Pro Bowl nose tackle and drilling him into the ground so that he can taste the grass seed at Lambeau Field.
Football.
Football.
Give me some Baldy.
Football. I think this might be my new favorite one, though.
Cross chop. Now, square the hips up. Bam.
Bam. Bam. Gives you the Emerald Lagasse there at the end. Bam. A little seasoning. All right, this is Purple Daily. Phil Mackey, Judd Zolgad, Declan Goff producing, three football-loving nerds as we follow the Vikings' journey to win a Super Bowl before we all die, which is the mission statement of the show. And every Friday, we collect 4 random questions. Some of them are our own. And this week, a couple come from the listeners and the viewers of Purple Daily, which, by the way, we just surpassed between Purple Daily YouTube and Score North YouTube, 15,000 total subscribers. So thank you all for, if you've discovered us for the first time at some point during 2020, early 21, thank you for jumping on board. If you've been around, Judd and I have been doing a radio show together for 7 years on previously 1500 ESPN and now Score North Radio. So if you've been an old fan, thank you for helping us out. Apple, Spotify, ScoreNorth.com, and YouTube are the best places to find Purple Daily and Mackey and Judd. You guys ready for 4-Question Friday?
I love 4-Question Friday.
All right. This first question is a little bit of a picking at scabs here, but I saw I was watching Good Morning Football this morning because I love that show, and it's the most perfectly named show ever. And they were kind of going through what would it mean to Tampa Bay to win another Super Bowl, and then what would it mean, the what would it mean conversations, and it just got me kind of sad about the fact that the Vikings have never won one. So I think I know what the obvious answer is to this question, but just to flesh it out, headed into Super Bowl week next week, what is the ultimate season that got away for you guys in Vikings history? The season that got away. The obvious answer, I think, is 98, but if you want to expand upon that, we'll start with Judd.
You know what? I'm going to... I agree. The obvious one and probably the easiest way out, and you don't really have to explain it too much, is the fact that you went 15-1 in 1998, and you didn't get to the Super Bowl, much less win the championship. You know what I'm going to go with? I'm going to go on a slightly different path, but a team that very much had an opportunity. I'm going to go 2009. Every star aligned. You got Brett Favre, lifetime Packer, a guy who was hated here, who joined forces. I mean, it's like a Star Wars. He joined forces with your team to defeat the evil empire in Green Bay to show them that they had done him wrong. He had an MVP type season at the tender age of 39, I believe at that point. You certainly had all of the components around Mr. Favre that made you a really good team. You went to the Superdome, a very tough place to play, and statistically, I don't think wrong here. You kicked the Packers' ass, or I'm sorry, the Saints' ass. You statistically
kicked the Packers' ass
twice, and kicked them twice too, and that was Favre as well. But
every one was a Monday. Everything
about that season screamed, "Oh my God, this is it! This is the window. It's the perfect storm." The former foe, the former villain, has joined forces with you, and then you went and played the Saints, and you played a game that statistically easily, you could have easily walked out of that building with a Longwell field goal and a win. I'm going to go with that one because it's set up just so perfectly, and you somehow, because of fumbles, because of mistakes, because you had 12 men in the huddle, because Favre threw across his body, lots of things, you did not win.
The more I think about that 09 team, I think in the moment we praised their weapons because they had just the year before they had signed Barry into a big contract, and then Sidney Rice was a second-round pick that was coming into his own. But I don't think we gave Favre a ton of credit for that season. But I don't think we gave him enough credit in that he created this aerial attack and Percy Harvin was on that team with a backup tight end in Visante Shanko. Like he was signed as a backup tight end. He was not dynamic. He was just a big body that couldn't catch for 2 years. And Brett Favre kind of turned him into something. Bernard Berrien was just a one route trick pony.
Brett didn't really like him that much.
And Sidney Rice turned out, now injuries kind of derailed his career, but like that was the big season of Sidney Rice's career. My point is he didn't have a Justin Jefferson or a Stephon Diggs or a Randy Moss that he was throwing to.
Yep.
He kind of turned those guys into stars in a way.
Yeah. In fact, when I covered the Packers for the Strib, I think it was the second year I covered them, 2004. If you go back and look, Brett Favre made Javon Walker a superstar. And Javon was a nice player, but the same as Rice, he was nice. He was not great.
Yeah.
But if Brett liked you and trusted you, those were the two key things for him. He could make you a Pro Bowl player. And yeah, every bit of your team for the Vikings in 2009 came together and like screamed, you're going to the Super Bowl. And also keep in mind, I think with the guys who were hurt by the time that they got done with the conference championship game against the Falcons, if the Vikings had gone to the Super Bowl in 98, the Denver game would have been tough. I think with the Vikings, so far plays, I think, if they had played the Colts in the Super Bowl, I think that they win that game.
I do too.
That was not a dynamic Colts team.
No.
The Vikings were banged up, but at that point in time, lots of teams are.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go back and look at the percentages of would the 98 Vikings have beaten the Broncos or 2009 Vikings have beaten the Colts, I like the 2009 team's chances actually more.
Yeah. What about you, Dex? What's the one that got away?
For me, it's actually 2015 for the Blair Walsh game.
Wow.
Because it wasn't that team was an elite team and it scared you. The competition in the NFC that year was not good. I mean, I know Cam Newton went off and was Superman, but I think that team was beatable too if the Vikings were able to put a good blueprint on defense. And then the AFC representative was the Denver Broncos with a fluttering Peyton Manning, a shell of himself. I think the Vikings honestly make a legitimate run to at least the NFC Championship game. And if it's 2015 Broncos and 2015 Vikings, I think that's a complete toss-up. I'm not going to say that the Vikings are favored in that game because they would probably go in as the underdog against Peyton Manning and a really good defense. And it might have been a very boring Super Bowl, but it's 2015 because the competition was literally not there in the NFC.
I like that.
Yeah, you know what? I hadn't thought about that one top of mind, but it was kind of a weird transition year. Like the Panthers were the best team in the NFL record-wise, like you said, but Mike Zimmer, I think it might have been the year after that. Mike Zimmer had Cam Newton like sacked 8 times in the game, like at Cam's peak. So that would have been an interesting one. I'm going to go old school on you guys. This is before I was born. This is like, even Judd was probably, he was born one of these years. And I want to give you 2 years from the old school Vikings just to represent that era of fans. The 1969 Vikings were number 1 in defense, number 1 in offense, yards.
Yep.
And number 1 in point differential, and they smoked the Cleveland Browns in the NFL championship game. They were up 27-0 in the fourth quarter and gave up a garbage time touchdown. And then they got rolled by the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think if they had, so Fran Tarkenton was off to the Giants for a few years at this point. I think if they had Fran Tarkenton in that game against the Chiefs, things might have played out differently. So then they get Fran back.
Yep.
And in 1973, this was the first of 3 Super Bowl appearances in 4 years. And Fran Tarkenton had his highest passer rating ever in 1973. The Purple People Eater defense was still at its peak for the most part, and they had a blowout win over the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, and they got smoked by the Dolphins in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So to have those defenses and to have those offenses and Fran Tarkenton and Bud Grant and to look that great in the title game that leads to the Super Bowl, and then to just not even really be competitive in those Super Bowls, I think older Vikings fans would say those are the ones that got away.
Yeah, and I think in that Chiefs game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Vikings were double-digit favorites in that game. Like, they were massive.
Yeah.
It was expected to be a rout. And the last one, too, and this team didn't get to the Super Bowl, but this team was, I think, considered by some to be one of the best teams of all time for the Vikings, was the 75 team that lost on the Staubach Hail Mary to Pearson that got the right penalty. That team, by some historians, was considered to be of those Super Bowl era teams that went for the Vikings, the best of those clubs.
And they didn't get there. Yeah.
But you know what? The common theme, every time they're close, something occurs. Now, I will say the nice thing in the 70s was at least they got there.
Yeah.
Like they can't even get there now.
Yeah.
Can't even get the Super Bowl.
Question number 2 might sort of play into the blueprint to get there. This is from Richard, a Vikings fan living in Boston, Massachusetts, and he writes, would love to get Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, the Bears have called on him.
Yeah.
That's worst case.
We can talk about that at some point.
Absolutely worst case right there.
Would love to get Deshaun Watson, but how do Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer explain to the Wilfs that we know you backed us on Cousins' contract and our own contract extensions, but we got to make the change to Deshaun Watson because we think it's an upgrade? Will ownership give the green light and go ahead to allow you to talk to Houston? Like, how do you explain, well, you had faith in Kirk and now you're out on him? I actually think it's an easy one. You say, yeah, like at the time of the Kirk decision, it was the best decision. We all agreed it was the best decision. And never do guys 25 years old, 30 years old in their primes at that position become available. Kirk Cousins is like, he's not as good as Deshaun, but it's like for Kirk Cousins to have become available as a potential franchise quarterback is a rarity. And so I think your answer to the ownership group is, listen, like we can only go off what's available each year, and there is a generationally great quarterback available. We have to explore it. So
I love that, but I think if you're Rick, you've got to be slightly more quiet about this. And here's what I think you do. You get the private plane to Jersey because you do not want anyone with the franchise knowing what you're going to do. You do it this weekend. You do it today. All right? Tonight.
You paint the plane Bears colors just to throw people off.
Tonight? Exactly. You put Los Angeles Chargers.
Jets. It's one of the Jets.
Now, forget Zoom. This mandates you meeting face to face. Okay? Put COVID aside for 1 second. You go there by yourself, though, and you tell the Wilfs. You sit down. You say, look, you people do a great job, and you love to make splash moves, right? They love splash moves. Like this is going to get you on the cover of ESPN.com homepage. If SI is still publishing, the New York Times, everywhere is going to. So you say, this is going to be tough. What I'm about to tell you is going to cost you a lot, and it's going to be tough. But we have a chance to get Deshaun Watson. We also will have to fire Mike.
That's the tough part, I would think.
No, right, but that's why I'm not bringing Mike.
The quarterback thing is not a hard discussion.
I agree, but what I'm saying is if you logically take this down the correct path, I don't think Zim can coach this team. So like I think if you're going to get Deshaun, it's not a, hey, now go to it with Zim. So that's the tough part. But what I'm telling you is I go to the Wilfs alone if I'm Rick, and I have a plan for, oh my God, opportunity that no one saw. To your point, Phil, no one saw is knocking, and you love to make moves like this, but we're going to need to do a little bit more, and it's going to be difficult. But as Patrick said on our show, he's right, this is a Super Bowl move.
But so if I follow you down this path, if you're going to let Mike Zimmer go and you're going to bring in Deshaun Watson, like, well, you'd have to replace Mike Zimmer. You'd have to find a readily available head coaching candidate coordinator that Deshaun Watson loves all in one. I don't know. Where would you? Oh, Eric Bieniemy is still available. Because nobody hired him.
Oh, does that work?
Interesting.
Does that?
Okay. Percent chance that this could happen in the next 2 weeks.
Well, wait. Percent chance.
Is it zero?
Really?
Is it zero?
It's
or is it like 2? You think it's 5?
5.
And that's 0.5, I think.
5. It's less than 5.
But I think it's a look.
Telling me there's a chance.
Look,
write that down.
Look, the one thing that I think, at least for me, gives us a 0.5. The Wilfs love to make moves like this.
They do.
Like this is in their DNA is to like look at what the old Yankees did, right? Hey, splash moves. And it's a salary cap league. It's doable. I would have to move on from Mike and his philosophy. I would have to move on, obviously, from Kirk. But I'm telling you, when the dust settled, you would have a Super Bowl type situation.
The hardest part about this whole Deshaun Watson discussion is at first, I think the hardest part for some people to wrap their heads around was he's not going to get traded. Oh, he's going to get traded. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
The hardest part for the Vikings is he has a no trade clause. So he essentially gets to dictate where he goes. And if there's a certain market, if there's a certain coach, like if there are certain things that he wants, Jets, Dolphins, 49ers, the Vikings don't really have a say outside of
But you are private.
begging.
But you are privately saying you get to play with Dalvin, Jefferson,
Coyle, Niederreiter.
And here's the thing: we're allowing you basically to handpick the coach. That's the tipping point to me. No one else can say that. I don't think. I am suggesting that you basically privately sit him down and say, we are picking your guy to coach.
Can you imagine if you lay all that stuff out to him and then he goes somewhere else and then it leaks out that you tried to backstab Mike Zimmer?
I don't care. Who cares at this point?
All right, question number 3 here.
Don't care.
This is from Tyler on Twitter. He says, rank these 4 available quarterbacks in terms of trade compensation to get them. Okay. Aaron Rodgers, and this is for anyone, Vikings or anyone. Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Deshaun Watson, and Trevor Lawrence, or the first overall pick.
So are we ranking how easy it is to acquire these guys? Is that what he's trying to ask?
No, I think the scale.
I'll make an executive decision interpreting Tyler's question to say, if you were a general manager, rank them in order of how much you would give up to get each of these things.
Okay, so 4, I think, is an obvious choice. It's Stafford. I mean, he's fine, but he's not going to be in my top 3 here.
Is he a first round pick even?
No.
Somebody might just in terms of like a bidding war, somebody might give a first round pick.
Maybe. I don't think so, though. I probably would not.
Second, third round pick.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, second round pick.
I agree on that.
I don't think a first round pick. Third, Rodgers.
Yeah, Rodgers.
Because my second one, Lawrence. Think about the contract.
Totally.
If you hit that one, 5 years of team control. 5 years.
I think in the case of Rodgers, Lawrence, and Watson, the bidding starts at multiple first round picks, right?
Yes.
Right now.
Correct. And then 1, Deshaun.
Yeah. Deshaun's going to be 3 first round picks.
Yeah.
A proven. Now, the difference, like with Lawrence, you could say, okay, it's not proven, but it's close. Like it feels like Andrew Luck coming out of college, and he's on a rookie scale deal for 5 years. And if you were a little more sure on Trevor Lawrence, you'd give up more for him. But because there's a little bit of uncertainty, he's a rookie, you got to develop him. It might take like 3 years. I mean, look at some of these guys. It took Josh Allen 2 pretty awful years until he became Josh Allen. And that could happen with Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
So, but if you knew that he could start off out of the gate,
he'd be 1 if I thought all of the things you just said.
Yeah. Dex, where are you at on these?
Yeah, honestly, I'm in lockstep with Judd. Stafford's 4, Rodgers 3, Lawrence 2, Watson 1. I guess you could make the case that who would be 1 or 2 in Watson or Lawrence, but you know what the proven commodity is with Deshaun Watson. And Lawrence is nice just because he's going to be making chump change essentially to the salary cap for the next 4 years at least. But I think Judd's list is pretty unanimous here. I'd be shocked if it was the other way around.
Yeah, I agree. And then question number 4 here. I was following the Shefty bombs yesterday on Twitter, so I'm tweeting more this morning. Just Shefty's feeling himself right now. Shefty is he's Steph Curry behind the 3-point line, reporting and speculating. My question here is Adam Schefter officially a member of Club Reckless Speculation for you guys?
Football.
When he tweets, Reckless Speculation. He tweets this morning, fun little hypothetical question. Would the Houston Texans and Jacksonville Jaguars be willing to trade Deshaun Watson for the number 1 pick? Watson to Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence to Houston. Is that fair?
I think if you're Houston, if you're smart, you get a little bit more than that.
You have to get a little bit more.
Like you can't just, I wouldn't swap
those aren't
them.
Equal things right now.
Exactly right. I'd probably want another high draft pick. But I do think if that was the starting point,
what if it was Lawrence,
it's a potential fit,
Lawrence, and then next year's first round pick? That seems a little bit more fair.
That's better. Yeah, I'd probably want Lawrence next year's first round pick and like a 3rd rounder or something like that.
Yeah,
but I do think that is that's probably, in fairness, in the ballpark, because I think we're all pretty convinced that Lawrence is going to be really good. Like, I don't think we're really concerned about, oh my God, he might not be good. So yeah, I would say if I could get next year's 1 Lawrence and I flip Watson and then I get a 3rd round back or something like that, I'd be pretty comfortable with that.
Do you guys think there's a chance that Houston could, I mean, Houston is illogical and incompetent, and they traded DeAndre Hopkins for almost nothing, and they let Bill O'Brien run their whole
GM,
franchise.
Though, who might be better.
Yeah, but like they just hired a 65-year-old position coach who's never been a coordinator before.
He's going to be a father figure, man. He's going to hold hands.
Then why not just hire Leslie Frazier?
I don't know.
At least Leslie Frazier's been a head coach before.
I agree.
And cleaned up a mess in 2010.
I don't disagree.
It's super weird.
Because I think that this guy knows Deshaun, and I think that they were banking on.
Deshaun doesn't care.
No, Deshaun's out of there. Like I don't think that they can accept that they've screwed the pooch so badly, he's leaving. Yeah. Like, I think that they're like, but look, we got this old guy that you really like. And he's like, dude, I don't care.
Why would you? And I don't mean to be an ageist, but you're hiring a 65-year-old that's never been a coordinator? What are you doing?
I don't know.
Super weird.
And Eric Bieniemy, who he wanted, is sitting right there.
Yeah. My question was going to be, right. Do you think there's a chance that incompetent Houston could just play this out and say, no, dude, we're not going to trade you. We're not going to trade you. You're a franchise quarterback.
Sit on him.
And they just sit on him all the way, and then we have a staring contest at training camp. And then it depends on, does he want to sit out and get fined? Or do you think they just say, all right, sorry, we botched this?
Yes, I think they could do that, but it would be so toxic and so stupid. Like, I'm fearful they're dumb enough to do that.
Yeah.
That being said, though, when I think when they see what a large group of teams is going to offer up for Watson, I think they trade him. Like, no team, I don't think, is going to say, hey, here's a 2nd round pick. And they're like, oh, can't do that, right? I think you are going to get legitimate offers from multiple teams that involve things like 3 first round picks, don't you?
I mean,
and if you do that, I don't see how you don't trade them.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are going to be knocking on the door. I mean, just to go back to what we talked about before, there's a report from Ian Rappaport that the Chicago Bears have made the call. They've made the call.
If you're a Viking fan, be concerned.
That's a problem if that happens.
I don't disagree with you at all.
Because right. the Bears' ability to beat the Vikings with bad to marginal to mediocre quarterbacks historically has been problematic. And they haven't fixed that position. Like, Jay Cutler is the closest they have come to fixing that position in 50 years with that franchise. If they all of a sudden fix it with one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL who's mobile and they still have a defense, it's not that you haven't had to worry about Chicago in the division, but I don't think you've had to worry about Chicago on the level that you have to worry about Green Bay every year.
Totally.
Right.
And now you'll have to worry about them for 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think if the Bears got Deshaun and got the quarterback that right, I think that they would then in turn very quickly get the coach right. And then you got problems.
Yeah, and so they would pair Nagy with Watson to give Nagy one more shot as an offensive guru.
But if Deshaun said, this guy's a goofball, I don't like him, they would say, I think very smartly, what would you like to do, Deshaun?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost...
Which is my idea.
This sounds ridiculous because, like, you should just... If you're the Vikings, you should just be in the mix for Deshaun Watson because he's Deshaun Watson. But if the Bears are a team that's also firmly in the mix, it almost gives you more incentive, like, just to block it from happening, throw in another first-round pick, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those trades that could change a division for the next 8 to 10 years.
You have to make the call. If you are the Vikings, whether you do it or not, or go far down the path, or are told to buzz off,
make the call.
You have to. If we find out they did not make the call, that's negligence.
Rick,
that is negligence.
Richard,
like Kirk Cousins. I mean, just think about what are we talking about here? Like, we're talking about a 25-year-old generational quarterback available.
You like that?
When's the last time this occurred?
Dude, it never.
Like, when's the last time a guy in his prime said, peace out, and he had enough ability, leverage-wise, probably to get his way?
Yeah, never.
I know.
Never. It doesn't happen in the NFL.
You've got to be involved.
Yep.
If nothing else, to dive in front of the train if the train is the Chicago Bears.
Yep. So, Rick, if you're watching Purple Daily, make the call. Hey, on YouTube, I think everyone should just comment, make the call, Rick.
Make the call.
Let's make sure Rick sees this. Make that call. Make the call. All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of Purple Daily. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Purple Daily, and please give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts. Help spread the word about the show, and it helps Rick know that he needs to make the call.
Make the call.